But let's speak to election analyst Wayne Sussman to find out what he thought about John Steenhuisen's speech. Thank you very much, Mr. Sussman, for your time. First of all, he was promising, for instance, that some of the municipalities that have collapsed are municipalities that are under the ANC. A lot of people would say that a lot of the times that the DA actually campaigns, it always campaigns on the back of whatever the ANC does wrong.
Thank you. It's great to have this conversation with you. Yeah, so what John Steenhuisen is trying to do is trying to make this election about the ANC or the DA, as their campaign posters say, and they're trying to compare the DA's experience in places like Mossel Bay and Midvaal, and to an extent the city of Cape Town, with many of the experiences of ANC-run municipalities. So yes, it's slightly negative campaigning, but this is the DA's most compelling offering. That when one looks at the Auditor General's report, that when one looks at what the News 24 published this week with regards to dysfunctional municipalities, the DA, many of the DA's municipalities stand very tall as municipalities where things are generally more stable. And what he's trying to do over here is saying, look, you've given the ANC a chance for long enough. Now lend us your vote this time round, and we'll replicate what we have done in places like Mossel Bay, places like Midvaal, places like Kocha, in your municipality. And of course, that's easier said than done, but I think that is what John Steenhuisen is trying to get across in their final Gauteng rally.
And looking at the fact that the DA has been in the news for all the wrong reasons, there are still some people who feel that the DA is racially divided, especially looking at all the top brass of the DA that resigned from there previously, like your Musi Mamane, Herman Mashaba, Athol Trollip, etc. You know, looking at that and what's happened this week and those posters that they had put up in Phoenix, with the leadership saying that they still stand by those posters. They haven't come out to say that they, you know, they don't like those posters or that they made a mistake with those posters. He didn't touch at all on that, and this debate that he had with Gareth Cliff, for instance. Is that telling?
It's a very important point you make. But remember, this is the DA's final rally, and we're going to also see the ANC's final rally and the EFF's final rally. And what the DA is trying to get across, yes, it's been a difficult campaign, with the posters in Phoenix, with meltdowns of senior leaders on social media, and recently the show on Gareth Cliff. But what John Steenhuisen is trying to do, because remember, any party, the ANC, the EFF, they're all going to manufacture the message they're trying to get across. And what you saw on stage today might very well be misaligned with the reality. But what you saw on stage today was a diverse party putting up a whole raft of candidates which reflect the demography of this country. I would say that the support base within the crowd, which was overwhelmingly black, isn't going to be replicated at the ballot box, where I think it'll be majority minority voters. So what you're trying to do in your final rally is put across a message that what he is trying to do here is that we're a diverse party which represents everyone, and of course that's been tested strongly over the last few weeks. But he's also saying we are the party which can get things done. We are the party about service delivery. This is an election about service delivery. So in that regard, and again I'm judging it on the rally itself, I think that this was a successful rally for the DA, and this lays down the gauntlet for the other parties which they're going to be competing against on Monday, the 1st of November.
All right, Wayne, I'm going to ask you to just stay on the line very quickly. I've got my colleague Govan Whittles, who was attending that rally for us, and he joins us now live. Govan, obviously the people who are at that rally are DA supporters. I see them, you know, some of them hugging John Steenhuisen, etc. You know, they're obviously receiving him well. What else did he say that we could actually discuss here with Wayne? Okay, I'm not sure if Govan Whittles is able to hear us, Wayne. I'm not sure if Govan Whittles is able to hear us, but we'll try and get him on so that he can just tell us a bit more of what Steenhuisen said. But of course, talking about the municipalities that the Auditor General has said are in collapse, those municipalities are obviously mostly in your Limpopo, KZN provinces, etc. Nothing here really in Gauteng that was that badly reflected in the Auditor General's report. Obviously, the Western Cape is one of those provinces that the DA would show off about with how it's run. When we are on level 2 load shedding, for instance, they would stay on level 1, etc. But when you look at the province of Gauteng, almost all, actually all of the municipalities where the DA led the coalition collapsed.
Yes, so that was for different reasons. I think when one looks at the city of Johannesburg, there was, on the one hand, Mayor Herman Mashaba, as head of the DA, managed his coalition partners well, so he deserves credit for that, but he didn't manage his own party very, very well. And that was one of the challenges, and that's what ultimately led the coalition to collapse. In Tshwane, we had a very complicated arrangement, which, by the way, I think will continue after the elections on Monday, the 1 November, where the EFF were the kingmakers. So the DA couldn't rule without the EFF, and the ANC, if they wanted to take over Tshwane, couldn't rule without the EFF. And there was a very fractious relationship with the EFF and Solim Samanga. And then the next DA, Mayor Stephen Wakhalapa, didn't have a successful tenure. So you're correct in that regard. The DA needs to convince voters. Yes, everyone wants to win a municipality outright, but they have to convince voters in the next few days that if there are going to be coalitions, that they can do it better this time around. Just one municipality I want to mention in Gauteng, and that was mentioned in the speech, that's Mfuleni, Vanderbijl Park and Vereeniging. Are we going to see a mid-Vaal effect, where voters are seeing this more stable, much smaller municipality run by the DA right next to Mfuleni? Is that going to help the DA somewhat in Mfuleni on Monday, 1 November? That's going to be interesting, because that is the most dysfunctional municipality in Gauteng, and a very, very important municipality in southern Gauteng, and very important for the ANC to win outright.
And obviously, him being flanked by their mayoral candidate, Dr. Mpopalatsi, at the Mary Fitzgerald Square is also, obvious, especially because this was their national rally. Them choosing that particular venue to host their national rally, that means that they really badly want the city of Joburg back.
Correct, but that's going to be easier said than done. In Johannesburg, we have the unique situation in all metros around South Africa. You have the ANC, the EFF, and the DA going head-to-head. But in the city of Johannesburg, one of the challenges for the DA and one of the challenges for their mayoral candidate, Dr. Palatsi, is the following. You are seeing Action SA mounting quite a strong challenge, led by former Johannesburg Mayor and former DA Johannesburg activist Herman Mashaba. Then you have the Patriotic Alliance eating into the traditional DA areas in the coloured communities. You have a party like Al Jamaa around Lenasia really affecting the DA. You have the Vryheidsfront, the Freedom Front Plus, probably affecting the DA in places like Roodepoort. So what this is, when one looks at the Johannesburg elections in 2016, it was about a vulnerable ANC, the vulnerable ruling party, falls below 50%. This time round, we are also seeing a vulnerable DA being challenged on all flanks by those parties I just mentioned. That's why this is such an interesting election, and that's why Dr. Palatsi has a very challenging few days ahead of her as she tries to close the campaign on a strong note.
All right, let's bring in my colleague Govan Whittles, as promised a little earlier. He was at the rally, covering that rally for eNCA. Govan, I'm hoping you can hear me. Obviously, a lot of people receiving John Steenhuisen quite well, with the Joburg mayoral candidate, Dr. Mpopalatsi. Have you spoken to some of them? What's their reaction to what he told them?
Yeah, the reaction of the people on the ground here to the speech of John Steenhuisen, as well as the day's events in the surrounding issues, has certainly been confident ahead of the elections. It does seem like the DA believes it's done enough to get itself over the line, at least the line that it's set for itself in these local polls. And John Steenhuisen starting his speech by highlighting the performance of the ANC government and contrasting that to the performance of the DA governments in specific municipalities and the Western Cape, and then painting a grim picture of what he believes might happen if the opposition is splintered further, making that appeal that we've seen him make a number of times, calling for people to rather unite the opposition behind the DA. He's been given this message that the DA is the only party that's big enough to successfully take on the ANC and the EFF, he believes, and that's why he's warning against those small parties. But it does seem like the DA wants South Africans to look at what it's done in other municipalities and then vote for them. I've asked to speak to John Steenhuisen directly. He's not taking any interviews today. We'll speak to the Chairperson of the Federal Council for the Democratic Alliance, Dr. Ivan Meyer. He's also the DA's Minister of Agriculture. Dr. Meyer, you opened this rally today and you guys came here with a specific message that you wanted to get across, a more consolidated message. What did you think of the attendance here and whether you think you've got that message across?
Well, we just had a very successful closing rally for the local government election under the theme, the DA gets things done. I feel very positive. The energy is here. The change that people want to see has emerged already in DA-run governments. We're not making any promises. We deliver on commitments with a promise to do more. We have seen that every single municipality run by the ANC countrywide are collapsing. Collapsing means people are suffering. They're not getting water, they're not getting electricity, they're not getting basic services. And the Democratic Alliance message is clear. Where we govern, we get things done. In the Western Cape.
Right, let's talk about the Western Cape. This election has been characterized by the ANC coming up to election rallies and admitting that it's failed in some respects to govern, while the DA has been very critical of the ANC's failures and says that it's been able to govern very successfully. When are we going to see the DA's admission on its failure to govern, particularly in classified coloured areas in the Western Cape, such as Mitchell's Plain and other outlying areas?
Well, we have seen the ANC was in control in the Cape Town in 2006. People of Mitchell's Plain have suffered under the ANC. In 2006, they voted for the Democratic Alliance because they were tired of the ANC. And so they have repeated it in 2011, 2016, and certainly in 2021. We have successfully delivered in the Western Cape. That's why we have a DA provincial government since 2009. The DA's track record, not by our admission, the Auditor General, Ratings Africa, Stats South Africa confirms unambiguously where the DA govern, we get things done.
Well, what do you have to say to the people living in those communities? I understand that your governance systems, you believe, may be better than the ANC's. What about the lived experiences of people on the ground? In Mitchell's Plain, Cape Town remains one of the it has the highest rate of murder for gangs. In Khayelitsha and in Gugulethu, there are people living with sewage outside of their door. What is your response to this, and is there no admission that you are failing in some respects?
Well, the police is failing South Africa. Across South Africa, we know that the police function is a national function. The police commissioner and the police minister went to the national parliament and they said they cannot guarantee the safety of citizens in South Africa. So it is the national government that is failing South Africa. If you look everywhere where people are failing, it's water, it's a national government competency. But we're not here to talk about them. What we have done in terms of safety, lead officers, putting municipal police, fixing things, partnering with the neighborhood watches there in the Western Cape. Things are changing on the ground. People are taking ownership because we believe in active citizenship. And in the Western Cape, as in the rest of the country, things are going to change right here in Johannesburg. This is the financial capital of the African continent, and this city is badly managed and run. It's going to change on the 1st of November. We're going to have a new DA mayor in Johannesburg.
Finally, then in 2016, we saw in the run-up to the elections, the concern was more about the number of people that may show up to vote, and the contest was between the ANC, the DA, and the EFF. This time around, the DA is preaching a message that it doesn't want the opposition splintered further. Surely some concern then about how the Patriotic Alliance may perform in some coloured areas across the country, and how Action SA may perform here in Johannesburg and in Tshwane. How concerned are you that the emergence of other opposition parties may lead to the DA not being able to record significant growth?
Well, we built our campaign on the DA's strength, not on the weakness of other political parties. So our strength will deliver the goods in the rest of South Africa. The DA has a proven track record, and so we're not concerned about these smaller parties, because we have seen a trend. Many of these parties will simply disappear on the 2nd of November. You won't see them. The Democratic Alliance is here to change. In 2024, there's going to be a new government in the Union building, and we're using this platform of 2021 to leapfrog into the Union buildings. So the Democratic Alliance is ready. We have also outcompete all other parties with the registration campaign. When you outcompete with the registration, that's the first level of pointing to your success and your victory here in South Africa.
Dr. Ivan Meyer, John Steenhuisen currently taking a lot of flack on social media and the Democratic Alliance for grinning while a comment made by Gareth Cliff that allegedly invalidates the lived experience of black women. What do you think about this controversy? You think it will affect your party's votes?
I haven't seen it myself, so I cannot comment on it.
All right, thank you so much. That's Dr. Ivan Meyer. He's the federal chairperson of the Democratic Alliance, also the Minister of Agriculture. That's Shadow Minister of Agriculture for the DA. The DA is very confident, Masego, despite everything going on, and it does seem like the internal polling shows that they may perform very well in targeted areas. Of course, that's what every other political party, including Action SA and the ANC, has said about their internal polling. So we'll have to see until voting day what actually happens. But for now, it's back to you from the DA Get Things Done rally here in Newtown, Johannesburg.
All right, that was Govan Whittles, and I hope we still have Wayne on the line. Wayne, I'm sure you heard the federal leader speaking to Govan there, saying that the DA is very confident of an outright win. I mean, due to what we saw during the last local government elections with, coalitions happening, is that likely really that a single party will win a municipality, especially here in Gauteng?
Well, let's look at the three metros. I think it's certainly unlikely in Tshwane unless there is major turnout in the DA's traditional strongholds in Tshwane and a very reduced turnout in some of the traditional ANC strongholds. But it's an unlikely scenario, let's be honest. Johannesburg, I actually thought the ANC might have a chance of reclaiming the city, but I think it's unlikely that it nor the DA or the DA will win an outright majority in Johannesburg. I think it's going to be very difficult. I think both the ANC and the DA's numbers will go down in Johannesburg. Ekurhuleni will be interesting. We know the ANC came close in 2016 in winning an outright majority. I think this time the DA, the Freedom Front, Action SA, the IFP, African Transformation Movement are all parties who are hoping to grow. So to answer your question, the most likely outright majority in Gauteng in the three metros would be in Ekurhuleni, and that would be an ANC outright majority. I think it's unlikely for the DA to win an outright majority. Beyond Cape Town, Nelson Mandela Bay would be the next one for the DA to look at.
I was about to actually discuss Nelson Mandela Bay with you. I mean, the ANC lost that one, and they're trying very hard to try and win that municipality back. But the people in that municipality have spoken. It seems they would rather have the DA go in there in terms of that coalition government. But I just wanted to ask you very quickly before I let you go, Mr. Sussman. Hearing from Govan Whittles, my colleague, saying that he did ask to speak to John Steenhuisen, and he opted not to do any media interviews. I mean, normally leaders would make themselves available, especially during this election time, to journalists to speak to them and further put their points across to voters. But this time he opted not to do it. Could it be because of the PR nightmare that is facing the DA at the moment?
We all know Govan Whittles is a very tough interviewer. No, I don't know the answer to that question. Usually Steenhuisen is willing. I know that there's an issue after Phoenix where he didn't want to speak to the press. Yeah, I wouldn't know if I'd read too much into it, but again, the overall theme, what you saw today, wasn't just John Steenhuisen and Helen Ziller standing on a stage. You saw a variety of voices, a variety of faces which cover the length and breadth of this country, which are trying to show, build on what Musi Maimane did and try and make the DA as diverse party as possible. So that's what they're trying to put across. I'm not saying that's reflected in reality. That might also be the reason why Ivan Meyer was asked to speak there instead of John Steenhuisen.